What happened if you look back to like 2015? Arnold came out and made a statement about midsections and guts and how this is bad for the sport and it's not what bodybuilding should be. And ever since that statement that he made, the IFBB has put all bodybuilders on notice. If your waist is sloppy, if you have a distended gut, you're not going to do well, right?
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk.
Yeah, me and you, like, we're not.
No, I'm looking at the Arnold Classic trophy, like I said earlier. I'm like, dude, that's a wide waist right there. But anyhow,
so they kind of put everybody on notice, and I think what the IFBB is trying to do is slowly move more and more and more and more towards that aesthetic shape, because at the end of the day, I mean, you want people to want to look like these guys.
yeah.
Right? Like when people see, if I ask people,
He's still got a fuck ton of
no,
match,
but
you know
listen,
what I'm saying?
but I've tried this experiment,
Yeah,
Dave.
yeah.
I actually went into the audience and I've asked people on Instagram and random people, who is your favorite guy? Well, it's Samson. That's the guy I want to look like the most. That's what it's, I mean, that's the most basic thing you need to ask is who do you want to look like the most?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the direction they're pushing, right?
I think that's what Arnold did, right, back in the day, and then when he started doing films, especially in the likes of me, were watching them as like an 8, 9-year-old kid. I was like, oh, I want to look like that. It didn't really have anything to do with anything else other than the visual of I want to get to there at that point. So I think having that now as the standard, and like you say, you have physiques that, as bodybuilders, as coaches, as guys that just go to the gym, we can appreciate the amount of muscle that's there.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it's not in the right
Shape mentioned very
shape.
Go, oh, that looks like a cartoon character. That looks like the superhero, and then that one looks like one of the villains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The villain's normally a little more like just monstrous muscle everywhere, and then the superhero is normally the tiny.
The aesthetic, yeah.
Right.
See, like, the thing is, they say, well, Arnold wants aesthetics. It's not. It's the IFBB wants aesthetics.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Is does anybody really give a fuck what Arnold thinks? I mean, they do, and his words have some weight and they have power. But when it comes down to if you're judging, are you sitting there thinking, well, I wonder what Arnold's going to think?
No, absolutely not. No.
You know, you're looking at who's up there and you're comparing them with who else is up there on that given day,
Right.
right?
But I will say this, if I can say this, I think like when you have a Mr. Olympia or an Arnold champion, that sort of becomes your standard now category for bodybuilding, whatever category you're talking about. So what do you want to be the standard? Do you want it to be the shapely mass, or do you want it to just be a mass freak? Right. So that's why I think it's important to place that accordingly, so that you're setting that standard for the amateur ranks and beyond.
I think Arnold has influence, but it's not like people think. It's not like on that show he had influence. No, it's more broader. Like if he, after, like I said, in 2015, when he came out and said, this is ridiculous. It can't be like this. I think people heard, right? Like judges heard, people heard, and they're like kind of reset our thinking a little bit about what we want.
That reminded people.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the kind of influence where he's going over to the judges table and going, hey, make sure that guy wins. Like that's not what people should think. That's not how it works.
Well, what I think is cool here is I think this conversation that we're having here is going to start happening on all podcasts with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
If not already, I'm further disconnected from it than what you guys are, and that conversation's happening, right?
Yeah.
Where now you're in this weird place, right? Where now you're this guy that's potentially setting the standard. So that's kind of awesome, right? But at the same time,
I just feel like, there's a lot of pressure in that. But then you know what? For me, the way I look at it is when I started bodybuilding, I was watching it. I know one of the biggest draw was seeing guys like Flex Wheeler and Kevin Levrone and seeing their shape and how wild they were on stage and looking at that and just being blown away by it. I didn't know anything about bodybuilding. I didn't know anything about muscles. I didn't know anything about it. I just looked at it and just go, that looks amazing and I want that.
Yeah.
So, the same standard they set to me when I came into the sport like that is the same standard I want to then recognize set to other people when they watch the sport. So it's almost that thing where you can show a picture of someone who doesn't follow bodybuilding, doesn't know anything at all, and say, what do you think? And they can look and go, wow. you know, and get blown away by it, not more of that actually look at it and go, yeah, it's a bit too much for me, you know. So is that sort of thing so you can show it to a regular person and say, yeah, that's the kind of physique, you know, that you can be appreciative of.
So as you've moved up through the ranks, what things have you had to do to be able to maintain the symmetry?
It's just that, it's your training style. Everything has to match. And it's almost like we've always said, regardless of how much mass I put on going forward, the minute it starts to seem like my waistline or anything is starting to, or my lines are starting to blow out, that's the limit. We have to pull back on it. So we have to make sure with every match put on, you still keep that shape, you still keep that lines you have. And you have to, it's one thing again is, you know, with bodybuilders, we want everything now. We want to rush. We want all the muscles now. We go to the gym and we just want it all now. And is that having that patience to say, okay, pull back and slow down, let that muscle growth happen slowly, and let it just kind of fill your frame out equally and not just blow you up all of a sudden. So it's having to that appreciation of that and being patient enough to understand that you don't want it just all happen.
Yeah, but it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to really do it. Right?
Well, that's, you know, I think that's why, you know, it comes around the circle around you. You know, you can see they're very impatient. Like, no, I don't want to hear that. I just want to. But having the right people around you to sort of really restrain and tell you, you know, you gotta listen. You have to. I mean, that's one thing that, you know, I've had that appreciation of is the ability to just not just be so bold-headed, but to actually listen to feedback, because it's something that, you know, bodybuilders we can sometimes struggle with, is actually not just criticism. You know, when someone gives you feedback, it's not always a criticism. Sometimes you have to maybe, you know, when a few people say the same things, you have to stop and say.
But you also have growth phases too. Like this doesn't work like most people think. Like I mean, it's like boom. When you're in a growth phase, it's how how you're like, no man, I want to just like pull back a little bit. When you're growing like crazy, it's like, you know, fuck you to the coach. I'm going to keep going. But so how do you navigate that balance?
I mean, it's the same thing where when you hit a new plateau, you race to a new plateau. It's like, okay, you have a look, stop and have a look at it and going, okay, right. Is majority of the muscles I'm putting on, is it going in the right places?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it going in the right place? Am I still holding a decent shape to that? Or is this now starting to look a bit, okay, it's a bit too much in the wrong place, so it doesn't look right? So is that point of knowing that and saying, okay, this is about it, or pulling back from that?
Yeah.
You know?
That's not normal, though.
That's what I was going to say. It can't be normal.
It's very rare, and it's what you want as a coach. That's what I want.
Yeah.
When I'm dealing with a lot of athletes, they're like I was 10, 15 years ago, like we were talking about, probably you're talking about. Hey, I'm accelerating, I'm going to keep this going.
Well, you just start to justify a new normal.
Yeah.
But my waist isn't that thick.
And
it's thick, but not that thick.
It'll come down once I start dieting, right? I'll look after that.
Oh, that's a good point.
I'll deal with it later on.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be, because I just want to, like my strength, I keep adding 20 pounds to every lift, like every 10 pounds, whatever. My weight keeps going up. I said, yeah, but is it, like you said, to be able to be analytical in the moment, that's rare. And I think that's what he's very good at. That's what's impressive. And for me as a coach, that's where I'm having to get involved and back the athletes. But he does it kind of self-regulated, it seems.
Yeah.
I think he's seen people before him as well. Like he knows, like, so this actually happened to, and I'm not saying he got it from me, but
I get it.
This actually happened to me.
Yes.
Like I had a relatively streamlined physique until I pushed the boundary past where my body wanted to go. And then it threw off everything. My waist got too thick and shit didn't look right no more.
Well, I don't think anybody intends to end up looking like shit. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody has the right intention, but at some point, say you made a mistake, he didn't. I'm trying to figure out how.
No, but this is what I'm saying. So what Ben said was, one of the things I know for sure, my waist would get bigger in the off season because of all the food you're eating.
Yeah.
And I would always be like, it'll come, because it would always come back during your prep. But then one year it didn't come back. So like you expect it to come back, but then eventually you start building thicker obliques and that shit, your stomach might get flat, but your obliques are now built. So now you've got this thicker, you got a wider waist than you had the previous year. So it kind of creeps up on you that way because you expect it to keep coming back every time you prep, and then one time it doesn't. But what I think what he's learned is from watching people before him is, I can't let this shit get out of hand in the off season in case it doesn't come back. So even if you see him in his peak off season, his waist still looks in check.
But what you said there was almost contradictory, where you said there'd be times where I forced past where my body didn't want to go. I'm like, don't we live in that space?
No, but no. But that's not.
I mean, it's easy to be in that. I have to be uncomfortable. I'm trying to get stronger. I'm trying to get bigger.
Yeah.
No, that's not how I.
He's trying to push past what
I don't think that's what he meant,
That's
but
not
I
how
get
he
what
meant
you're
it.
saying.
I meant it more like this. Every single bodybuilder, and we've seen them all, has a limit to where their body looks good, and then they go past that point. So like, take for example Kai Green. He probably looked best around 250. He pushed to 260. Now all of a sudden you got a thicker waistline, belly's a little bit distended, throws off your look. So it's like, he should have known the previous year, hey, my waist is getting a little bit thicker. And this is what Samson's talking about, is you can tell if my waist doesn't come back to where it was, I'm not going to keep going, which is what most bodybuilders would do. Because what happens to most bodybuilders is once your waist starts going a little bit, you're like, fuck, you know what? Maybe I got to make my chest and shoulders bigger. So then you, instead of trying to bring your waist back, you try and make everything else bigger.
Yeah.
And then your waist just keeps growing. And now everything's bigger, but everything looks like shit. Right?
That's what I mean. The first, say 10 years when you were getting bigger, every 10 pounds you put on, it looked better.
Yeah.
Every 10 pounds, oh, that's a better look. 10 more pounds, that's a better look.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there was a year where it started to go.
Yeah.
And instead of me saying, oh shit, you know what, my limit is 240, I said, well, maybe if I get to 250 with a bigger chest and shoulders, my stomach will look better. And I did get a bigger chest and shoulders, but in trying to get to that 250, my waist also got bigger. Because once it starts to go, if you keep lifting the way you're lifting and eating the way you're going, it's just going to keep on.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Samson's had the benefit of seeing all the guys from 2000 to 2015 that were amazing bodybuilders that eventually went over the hump and went too far.
Yeah.
So not only Samson, a lot of the guys nowadays, they're doing vacuums in the off season. They're eating much cleaner. They're not getting as fat because they recognize that these guys all in the 2000 to 2015 range, 2012 maybe, they were the guys that all their stomachs got thick, blown out, like with relatively, not all, but a lot of guys in that era went that way. So you have a whole crop of guys, Samson included now, that are like mindful of that.
Because there's a branding aspect with the sport as well, right? Because when you turn pro, you don't get a salary.
No.
Actually, it costs you money, right? So it probably costs more money. So you have this whole branding aspect that I think more people in the space are getting used to, trying to figure it out, which I guess can be frustrating too, because you got influencers that are making way more money, but it's a whole different thing where now that you actually won something that has a value, that you made a decent paycheck.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry as well. Maybe you do. Maybe I'm wrong. You don't have to worry as much about that back end branding right now to be able to coast. So I guess where I'm going with this, I think a lot of people stay too lean, too long, and they train for Instagram.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a good and bad thing, right? But if you're a pro bodybuilder and this is how you're making your living, you're going to have to keep the brand out there. You can't pull back a little bit and just kind of rest and recover because it has to be out there all the time.
Yeah.
Now, if you get a good payday, then you don't have to worry. Do you have to worry about that as much would be my question.
No, because I mean, for me, because even right from the get-go when I started, it's all the things like I always wanted to keep my off-season look within a decent check, not because of the brand or anything, because I knew that I don't have to blow out so much to grow.
Yeah.
So because of that, there was always more of a cap in terms of the look of where you have off-season where, yes, it's clear that you're not stage where you care, you're not that lean, but at the same time, you're never in a position where you're afraid to take your top off either. You know, you still look like a bodybuilder, be it off-season prep, you still look reasonably like, whoa.
No, I don't want you to gain 80 pounds.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
I've done that.
No, yeah, you don't want to do that. I think they've learned from that.
Yeah. So you know, even as a brand, you think, okay, that's an off-season bodybuilder, regardless of, okay, he's not stage ready, but you can still look at it and go, okay, that's a big off-season bodybuilder. You know, so it's trying to understand that you're reaching out people that understand the sport in that way, understand the look between off-season and prep, and not just expect you to be shredded all year round, because I think that in itself is where, you know, getting caught up in that mix is what leads to the idea of being actually dangerous, and you're trying to feed that even more, and you don't really progress when you do that.
So that was something that was always weird to me too, because as somebody that has a company, and not the bodybuilding space, but a strength and conditioning space, to me what would be more marketable wouldn't be what you look like on stage. It would actually be what you look like about 15 pounds heavier, big jacked fucker, you know, just a gray t-shirt, going back like old school person that would just fuck you up walking down the street.
You know,
But I think sorry, Samson.
Yeah.
I think Samson's right about one thing. Instead of, I think what a lot of people do is try and follow the trend of social media.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they like shredded people. I better stay shredded all the time.
But do they? You see what I'm saying? I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of people do, but I think what Samson made a good point about is it's education. It's like, hey, you know what? I know you like the shredded guys, but if you want to look like me and you want to put on 10 pounds of muscle in a year, this is what we got to do. So we're not always going to be shredded. So Samson does so much social media work, like through his stories and through YouTubes, that people understand in the bodybuilding space, they're starting to, that, hey, you know what? These guys get a little chubby when they have to put on that muscle. So he doesn't have to stay shredded all year round. He can do what he has to do, right?
You are right. I'm not going to name names, but I know that he doesn't compete anymore, but he's a pro, but he's more like an Instagram. He lives in that space. And he's got a wicked physique. He's done films and a bunch of stuff. When we get ready for a show, he would basically spend 3 or 4 weeks just doing photo shoots, different outfits, different hats, different hairstyles, and he would catalog all of them. And then for the rest of the year, would just drip feed them out. So you never saw him off season. You never saw him feel fat. He was always in shape.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dangerous part of the social media image.
So I personally would think, I've been in business for 25 years. That's shitty branding.
Yeah.
Because you want to tell a story.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's your YouTube, they're going to see this win. You're going to talk about this win. Then they're going to see you kind of float into the off season. Maybe you get a little deconditioned for a little while because you're taking a break. Then that's one phase.
But Dave, that's our entire branding. Like when you talk about Hostile, that's the entire brand.
Yeah.
We don't fuck around. Like this is when I'm on I'm on the podcast, on the Real Bodybuilding podcast, or when Samson's on his YouTube, or when these guys are doing stories, we don't fucking lie. We're like, look, I love to eat. I love to get fat. This is what I'm doing. This is how I got strong. This is how I got big. This is how I got shredded. Like this is, I think, what's attracting people to the brand.
I think so. I strongly believe so, because there's always a to be continued. Like, is he going to get fatter? Is he going to get too fat?
We're not trying to like pull the wool over anybody's eyes and be like, oh, we're perfect all the time. We eat perfect all the time, or like I look perfect all the time.
I think that's why it works, though, because especially as social media became very popular, maybe 3-4 years ago, or Instagram, there was a big space that was only perfection. And I think people bought into that early on, and now they've realized that's not the case. And so now this space of being real and honest and relatable has started to catch a bit more than just the perfection of people stood in front of a fucking Lamborghini.
I think. Go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
I think that's
The
what
rented Lamborghini.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the approach, because for me, it's always been the realness of it. You know, like before I joined Hostile, I was kind of coming up. You know, I was always showing, okay, look, I was working a full-time job in construction. I was leaving my work, getting changed late night. I had exhausted and then going to the gym to train. And people that follow me through the years have seen the progress of me doing that, then getting signed Hostile and seeing how my lifestyle was changing. They followed it like a story. And I've always kind of take pride in showing you, look, this is exactly how it is. I'm not going to show you something that I'm not going to show you me driving a car that I was in mine, or me standing in front of this great big house, which is not mine, and try to act to see I'm better. Now I'm going to show you the real grittiness of what is actually happening right now. And when things change, you can see how it changed. It wasn't this case that you just popped up and go, oh, he had it all, everything was great, that's it. So you can follow it like a story and go back to it and say, oh, I remember when you did this, I remember when you were here, I remember when you were struggling here, and I saw how you got here. And they can track it all, because I know even in my time, when I was looking at, coming up looking at pro bodybuilders, all I saw was when all you see is their high life, and day in a life, they go for a massage, they go for a therapy, everything is almost like you only see the good side of it. And you kind of fall in delusion of, especially with social media, thinking everything must be good for everybody else, but my life is crap, so what's wrong with me? But being able to see the realness of it, people say, yeah, you know what, there is bad days. You're not motivated every day when you go to the gym. Some you just have to be disciplined, but it's not about, oh yeah, today I'm going to kill it every single day. It doesn't work like that in the real world. No. And showing the real part of it and going, yeah, today it sucks, but guess what? I still got to go to the gym anyway. That's the realness of it.
I think there was something so when I was competing, there was only a few ways to brand yourself, right? You were either really, really awesome, or you got signed to like a really, really big company and they pushed you or something like that, right? I found out early on that my niche was telling people the truth, because I wasn't good enough to be at the top. So I would always be like, oh, I fucking tore a muscle, I'm rehabbing again, or whatever was going on in my life. And people would always be like, nobody's sharing this kind of stuff. So that was my brand from the very beginning. I'm like, you know what? This is the only way I can get through to people, is to actually say, you know what? I'm not the elite, but you're going to see all the shit that happens when you're trying to get there. So, and that's kind of carried over into the brand, and it's carried over into the people I've signed to the brand. I don't sign anybody that's full of shit. So like anybody who's part of the brand is always fine to do a story and say, you know what? I'm fucking depressed today. I feel like shit. My so-and-so passed away. Like, it's all very open and there for everybody to see.
Well, at the end of the day, everybody's still human.
That's right.
Where, in your story, the interesting thing is you're putting out there that you're working construction and all that. While you're doing that, but you're watching all these other guys getting the massages and all that, you have to make a choice yourself.
Yeah.
Part of you could have thought, I can't do this because I can't do all those other things, which a lot of people may think because that's all they see. And they're like, shit, this isn't for me. I don't have the lifestyle that's going to allow that.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you looked at it and figured it out.
Yeah,
right.
Because like, I remember like every time I used to do that and go to the gym, the people I meet at the gym were coming from the same way I was. They were coming out from a job, working all day, and coming to the gym to train. And we would talk about, man, how's your day at work and everything else, and when we train. So majority of people, I like that. So the idea of now kind of switching out and going and showing a lifestyle which is not true, which is, oh, no, I've just been massaging all day and now I'm going to train. It's only relatable to certain people, not majority of people actually in real life. So he's trying to show that realness and showing that, look, this is what actually really happens, not just the glamorous side of it, you know.
But it's got to be kind of awesome to not have to do the construction anymore, right?
Oh man, definitely. But it's almost like, but it's showing the journey of it. It's knowing that, and knowing, making it, you know, people that actually doing that now can see that and go, actually, it can happen to me as well because he did it.
Yeah.
So why not? It's possible. It's not the idea of, okay, you know, I'm in a situation, I'm working full time, I can't do anything else, and it will never change. You know, so he's being able to show that it can change for anybody.
That's one of the cool things about social media, I think. I was a bodybuilding fan. I started in bodybuilding in the 80s. Like as a fan, at least. I started competing in the early 90s. But like back then, there was no internet yet.
No.
So you only see the guys in the magazines, which if they were photo shoot ready after a show. And you had this misconception that they always looked that way.
Yeah.
You know? You didn't see their off season, you know, sloppiness and, you know, having fun, whatever, living a normal life. So as a fan of bodybuilding, I think it's one of the positive things about social media.
Yeah, that's true, because it gives you a chance to show that. It gives you to show what actually really happens, not just the glamour sides that you see in the magazine. And say, no, how do you actually get there? It's through this gritty, hard work.
Yeah, because I had the misconception when I was a kid that these bodybuilders were shredded all the time. I had that misconception. And then when I saw my first bodybuilding show and I saw my first guest poser, which was Barry DeMay back in like 1990 or something, he was a little bit out of shape. And I was like, he's huge. It's really impressive. I like seeing bodybuilders like that. But now you get to see that, you know, on social media.
Yeah.
So now that you've had this big payday and taxes take half, you know, what any plans for the other half?
Oh man, because I mean, me and my wife, we kind of the thing is, we had all these dreams beforehand, thinking, okay, all things we want to do, and you know, one of the things we want to do, you know, we like, okay, you know, we want to have a better home, we want to have something that we know that regardless of what happens to me tomorrow, we have something for it that we can say, right, when we won our first Arnold. That's what happened. So we were kind of, okay, we want to get a new home and actually say, okay, right, your first Arnold, that's what you did with it. So yeah, that's what I deal with.
Dave, his story is a crazy story. Like he's told this story on a lot of podcasts. So maybe I'll give you a quick rundown through it. But when I first had him on my podcast, it was 2 years ago. It was during quarantine for COVID, and he was doing a show in Korea. He flew to South Korea to try and qualify for Olympia.
From where?
He's in the UK.
UK, okay.
So he flies to South Korea to try and qualify for the Olympia. I podcast with him. He's in his fucking hotel room, locked in there for 2 weeks because they won't let him out. And he's got a show to do. So he's doing fucking band work and running on the spot for cardio.
No, I didn't go there first. Food.
They brought food to you. Tell him. Go ahead, tell him.
Oh, man. It was basically, you know, doing the whole quarantine.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you have to go to a new country, you have to quarantine in a hotel.
Yeah.
14 days. So it was in that period. And basically, all the shows are being canceled and everything else. I really want to qualify for the Olympia that year. So I was like, you know what? The only show UK, we weren't allowed to fly to the States. The only show we could fly to was the one in South Korea. So I kind of called them up and said, look, I want to do your show. What's the requirements? And they go, if you're coming for UK, you're going to have to quarantine in a hotel for 14 days.
Yeah.
And at the time, I sort of thought about it thinking, okay, it's probably like, you know, a beautiful hotel, got the hotel gym, you know, no big deal. I'd probably call in, take out, and sort of have those meals prepared and everything else. And first, I thought it was going to be like that, you know, and when I kind of spoke to the promoter time, it was, no, when you get there, we can't reach you, we can't give you anything. You're literally in your room for 14 days. You're not allowed to leave that. You can't go to the gym, you can't do, that's it.
So they're sending you like a peanut butter sandwich every couple hours.
No, you don't get that.
Really?
You don't get that. Basically, you're not even allowed to, you don't have meals. They bring you like, you know the kind of meals you have in the airplane?
Yeah.
They bring you that 3 times a day.
Your last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And at the time he's 280 fucking pounds. You know, he's trying to. All
right. So how'd this go?
So basically, you know, they told me about it and they said this is the situation, and I kind of thought about it. Go, okay, this isn't possible. It's not going to be 2 weeks after. I'm sure you're not going to.
Okay.
And then, 2 weeks out, you're pretty much in shape and everything else. So you got to maintain that for 2 weeks. And you know what? I was hungry, man. I really wanted to do a show. I really wanted to qualify for the Olympia. So, you know, I speak to my wife and we said, you know what? Is it actually possible? Can it be done? Mm-hmm. And I was like, hell, if anybody's going to do it, I'm going to freaking do it. You know, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we said, okay, forget packing any clothes and anything. Like, you don't need all that. You just need enough food to last you for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we took all our chicken breasts, all that thing, froze it up overnight, like literally have it frozen. Stuffed my bag with as much frozen food as we can. Went there, literally as soon as I got there, got guys in hazmat suits, put you in a van, put you in the truck, take you there, put you in the room, shut the door. It's okay, see you in 2 weeks' time. So I was in there, obviously, living off of this. And every morning, they obviously drop your meals 3 times a day. Look at the meals, and you just look at it and just go, yeah, straight in the bed, can't eat none of that. And, you know, wake up in the morning, first thing, do cardio, I'll be running on the spot.
He was posting stories on his Instagram.
You can't leave the room either, so you're like running in your...
He's posting stories just running on the spot. And I'm watching this going, what the fuck is this guy doing?
No.
Yeah, so run on the spot and then use band work, anything, handstand, push-ups, anything just to keep that shape going and everything else. So did that, you know, I mean, that's when we first started talking and everything. So did that for 2 weeks straight. And, you know, it was definitely an eye-opener and everything else. And it was something that it was kind of a shock to be able to do that. And then I remember after the 2 weeks, on the 14th day, they said, oh, by the way, we got bad news. The show's been canceled. Yeah. So, you know, and, you know, at the time, I remember at the time, I was working construction at the time, and I wasn't allowed to travel overseas at that time. No, I wasn't allowed to travel, but they frowned upon it because it was all the, you know, corona. They really didn't want anybody sort of risking anything. So I couldn't even tell my job that I was going there. So we kept it quiet. So when I was there and I was, you know, putting everything on the line just for this, they found out and I got fired. So
wait a minute. Yeah. I didn't know this part of the story.
Oh,
he did. Okay, wait. You did a really bad job of keeping it a secret because he was posting on Instagram every day.
I didn't. For the first 7 days, we left the.
Oh, you didn't post it until after.
Nobody knew. Okay. And then after 7 days, the promoters were basically trying to promote the show, and they said I was coming to do the show, and nobody believed them. They were like, He's not here. He has quarantine. What is it?
Yeah.
So the promoters basically asked me that, look, can you just release a video just saying, look, I'm in South Korea, I'm in a hotel room.
Just so that somebody will come. Yeah.
So I did that post and I sent it to the promoter and said, look, just don't tag me in it. Just keep it to yourself because I'm really trying to keep this on low key. So did that and everybody saw it and everybody shared it. And I was like, okay, see how this goes. And then he found out about it and then he interviewed me and then he went over you. Even then, I didn't want to put it on my social. I mean, it was on YouTube, but somebody obviously at work went to Google it and it popped up and they found out about it going, hey, what's this? And they weren't happy about it. So it was almost like you were putting everything on the line just for this one.
But then the show never happened.
The show never happened at first. You know, the show never happened at first.
No.
So they canceled it first.
Yeah, but then they put it back on.
Then they put it back on.
And then
the same day, though?
2 weeks later.
Fuck!
So we had to stay there. They had to stay there.
So basically, because after the first 2 weeks, they said, okay, because after quarantine, you can have to out to the public. And they said, look, Sam, you can either go home now and like call it a day. Nice try, but we can promote the show. We're going to postpone the show for another 2 weeks. Or you could choose to come out to another hotel and go to a proper gym and eat properly and stay there for another 2 weeks. And at the time, I was kind of like, I've just gone through this. And obviously, when they just told you that, oh, by the way, we postponed the show because it could cancel, they're not even guaranteeing you that it will be on in after another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They just said, well, you can stay for another 2 weeks between. We can put it on then if you're willing to stay. So it's almost like, okay, I've already made a loss. I've already been here this long. So, and you're not guaranteed that you're going to have another 2 weeks. So what do? Do you just call it in, call it quits? Or She said, "Oh, sorry, I'm already here."
Even me, I would have stayed.
So there we go. So
Yeah.
that's basically what happened. At the time, I was like, okay, I'm already here.
Yeah.
At least this time I'm known.
You have a little more freedom,
a lot
too.
more freedom and everything else.
Yeah.
So I stayed for another 2 weeks and then did the show and came second. So, but it was definitely one of those experiences that really, I mean, pretty much changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
But sorry, this is a sidebar question. Was that the place where was it the gyms that you couldn't wear your shoes in the gym?
Yeah.
Or was it just in the locker room?
It was in the locker room.
So you couldn't wear your shoes in the locker
In
room.
the locker room, and even though the locker room was like wet floors and everything else. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you go to the locker room and you got to take your shoes off before you walk in. But then the floors are all wet and shit from the showers.
Well, yeah. Because everything makes so much sense.
I remembered from hearing that. I was like, that's fucked up.
Yeah. So what happened after that show then? What was your next thing?
So basically, we did that. We kind of did that show, came second, and then we flew back to the UK and everything else. And then I think by that time, they was kind of bringing out the COVID measures and everything a bit down a bit. And then we had a show in Spain. Did that place fourth, and that was basically my 2020 year was basically that point. And I remember even at that point, I was kind of like really disappointed because I really wanted to qualify for the Olympia that year, and everything just seemed like. The only thing I went to plan was basically me meeting Fuad. Everything that year felt like it fell apart, you know.
That was everything. Like we had, because I didn't know Samson. When I saw him posting like this running on the spot shit in the hotel room, I was like, I got to talk to this guy. So I got on the podcast. That was the first time we actually spoke for like, my podcast is usually like an hour long. And all I got from that podcast was this guy doesn't care about anything except qualifying for the Olympia. That was like his entire purpose for living that year. And he was just shy like this much. So
Yeah.
after the fourth place in Spain, where did you go from there? I can't remember.
We did the UK one, and it was just like, okay, it just wasn't coming together for me. Really, wasn't. It was the Korean guy.
Remember the guy? Chul Soon or what? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, So it was kind of like, you're having a year where you're trying to do whatever it takes. Because I remember that year, because I remember the start of that 2020, bodybuilding, as much as it was, like I said, I was working full time and everything else. And what you don't know is like you spend so much in competing as a pro, traveling and everything and diet. And when you have a family and everything else, and you're literally feeding this hobby you have that wasn't, giving back, you weren't really doing anything. You start to stop and start questioning your decisions and start thinking, man, is it really working for me? I'm being a bit naive here, or am I really meant to do this? And I remember 2020 was the year where I was like, okay, if it doesn't work out this year, if I don't make it Olympia this year, I'm not bodybuilding anymore. That'll be it for me. So that year was, okay, if it doesn't work this year, I'm done.
You know what's interesting? Sorry to jump in. For every kind of great or successful bodybuilder, or even just athlete that I've kind of interacted with, they all have a point like that where they were on that
Edge.
yeah, they were questioning, okay, or this is the last kind of go, and if it doesn't work out, I need to get a real job. Something like that.
I would say that's all strength athletes.
It's everybody.
It's probably every athlete. What pushed it over the edge to say, okay, now this is it?
I mean, that was because I was in debt, credit cards,
Of course.
everything else was racking up. And literally 2020 was like, okay, I literally came in 2020 with the idea, okay, this is before COVID actually started. So I was like, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it this year.
Yeah.
If by the end of this year I haven't stand on the Olympia stage, I'm done with bodybuilding because it's just not for me. So when we kind of started, I remember we started prepping for a show in April. I mean, the show was in April, so we started prepping at the beginning of the year, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, damn, okay, what do you do now? I mean, I didn't know how long it was going to last. I thought it was, just like most people thought, probably be a couple of weeks, everything will go back to normal.
But you've already made a deal with yourself that this is the year you're doing everything you have.
Show. Yeah. So, and then when it happened, I was like, okay, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then weeks and months and months, and I was on prep for almost 6 months before I even got the chance to go to South Korea. So every show that I was pretty much like 2 weeks away from, it gets cancelled. And it's like, okay, now you're going on 6 weeks. So I carried on prepping anyway. And then you get close enough and it go cancelled. And you go, oh, now you're going on 10 weeks. Okay. And then it just felt like it carried on like that all year. And then finally, when obviously the opportunity came to South Korea, I'm like, well, hell, this one has to work. So it was kind of like,
and that was second, though, right?
Yeah.
So did you qualify? Excuse my ignorance, but did you qualify that year? So what made you stay?
Basically,
because you see what I'm saying, you didn't do what you wanted to do.
Because basically, at the end of 2020, I was like, damn, okay, what do you do now?
Yeah.
I mean, the one great saving grace was like, at least, because I remember when he saw Simon to his company, he gave me a chance to say, okay, right now, bodybuilding can pay for itself.
Okay.
So that was the one changing point where, I lost my job, but now bodybuilding can pay for itself. So it was okay.
But that's still not putting you over, right? It's just breaking even. I get it.
So,
yeah.
So it was kind of the choice, okay, what do you do now? And I remember he calling me after my last show and he's saying, look, you got everything, man. You got what it takes. You just need somebody to coach you through this or someone to help you out. So we kind of said, okay, right. And he introduced me to John. And at the time, and he was like, look, I think he can really help you out. Just give it one more chance to kind of go through that.
Sorry if you don't mind. So at the time, Mel, his wife, is his biggest support system.
Yeah.
And she has a background in nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So they were working together and she was working with him. And I'm seeing the shows go by, right? It was like I had been watching him for like a year. He did I think even before the COVID year, I think I remember seeing him and seeing like this guy's got a lot of potential, right? And then when we got to know each other, he's like, well, my wife coaches me, whatever. And it's not a matter of her not knowing enough. I'm like, a wife can't coach her husband.
No, I get it.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So after, I forget what show it was that he did, I pulled him aside and said, hey, I think it's a good idea if you get some separation and get somebody that, has coached somebody your size and your caliber. And he said, well, who do you think? And I said, we listed a few coaches that I thought would be beneficial, but I love John. I thought he was extremely smart. And I'm like, this is probably going to be a good fit for you. So then John went with him and John saw the potential right away.
Yeah.
So then.
Yeah. And then obviously John kind of spoke to me. And I remember speaking to John at the end of 2020 and he's saying, man, kid, you got really good potential. He goes, look, trust me, spend a year with me and you will be at Olympia come 2020 or 2021, And at the time, we kind of like, okay. And he basically said, look, let's have an off season. Let's just get you growing a bit. Let's, bring your back up, do all those things with it. So, we kind of sat down and like, oh, okay. And at that point, my confidence was really low. After, you just feel like you just failed. Mm-hmm. You're literally down as you can be, And John basically started working with me and really sort of feeding me the idea of, you have something. You got to believe in yourself. You have something. There's something there. And every week we'll talk, and every week he still feeds that whole notion of, man, wow, you're great. You can do well. You can do well.
He was his customato.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably a nicer version.
So he kind of fed that for a while, and after a while, I kind of started believing it as well. And I saw, I was progressing. We went through, the first half of 2021. With him just kind of working with me. And I remember wanting to qualify for the Olympia in 2021, but he said, look, we're going to need more time because the show then was in September. And if we wouldn't have had a long enough offseason to really go, if we actually picked to do that show, he said, look, let's do a show after that so we can qualify for 2022 year. So I was like, yeah, great. So at the time, they were just introducing the Arnold UK. And I was okay, nice show right at home, my backyard, I know it gives me enough time to qualify for it. So we started sort of prepping towards that show. And everything was going really well, At this point, I'm feeling really good, Things just started coming together nicely. And I'm feeling like, okay, you know what? This is the big break. This is the point. I know I can do this now. I got a good support system. Everything's working out. We started prepping. And then we kind of got to about 8 weeks out. And, I remember, I spoke to John the Friday, and we kind of have our check-ins like we do. And he kind of said, man, kid, you know what? You're going to shock the world when you get on stage. They're not ready for what's coming. You're going to really shock a lot of people. And, and he started making me believe that, I've really said, okay, this feels right. It feels good. And I remember that Friday we kind of spoke and we had a check-in and he was like, kind of do that. And then I think it was like on Sunday afternoon, I started getting messages from people saying, oh man, dude, I'm so sorry for you, man. My condolences and stuff like that. And I was kind of like weirded out and freaked out about what the hell are they talking about? What is this, And, at that point, he was like, okay. So I remember switching on the news to see what's going on. And I kind of opened up social media and, that's when I actually heard about John's passing. And, that was the point where it was like, man, okay, that was it. It's like, every time you seem to catch a break, life has a funny way of pulling that thing around
every time.
Your feet, So yeah, that was the moment that I just thought, I can't do this, and I really thought, I was gonna pull out right then and say, look, that was gonna be the end of it, and obviously spoke to Fuad and spoke to the rest of the guys and everything else and said, look, with everything that's happened, and then I was already halfway through a prep anyway, so they kind of advised me that, look, you and John have already been working on something. You really you know, he really believed in you. He really believed that you're gonna do something big with it. Don't stop. Finish up what you said you were gonna, you know, finish up the race, keep going. So after that, you know, I kind of, after, you know, a day or two of just kind of like thinking about it, I'm really thinking, damn, okay, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for John. I'm going to, you know, carry on going. So I basically kind of reach out to, you know, but John have always spoke to me like, you know, he speaks to my coach Milos and he tells him about me and saying, look, I got this guy in the UK, you know, he's going to be something, you wait till you see him and sort of thing. So I thought, okay, if I was going to do this, I need to reach out to somebody that actually knows about what me and John were doing and everything else. So I needed help. So we kind of reached out to Milos and said, look, I don't know if you know me, you know, I was prepping with John before, you know, all thing happens. Can you help me out? You know, I'm pretty much on my ends here. And he sort of thinks, you know what, yeah, okay, let's do it, you know. And he kind of got me ready to carry on the prep with me and got me ready for the Arnold UK. And then I remember that year because he preached that, John said, look, you're going to qualify for 2020 to Olympia. And when you do, you're going to shock the world. So I basically made my chance that, look, whatever happens, I will be on that 2022 Olympia stage. I don't care how many shows I got to do, what I got to do, but I will do whatever it takes to get to that stage. And so we just went show after show after show until we finally won one.
I was going to say, I think you did a bunch, right?
Yeah.
He won, would you in Prague in the end of 21, he won it.
But how many shows was it in that span?
Four.
It was a lot. It was, yeah.
I remember when John passed, we talked about it, and I was like, he would want you to keep going. He would want you to finish what you started. And I think the Milos thing was a good connection because I know John had a ton of respect for Milos. He liked him. He liked Milos a lot. He thought he was very smart and very intelligent. So I thought it was a good fit for him. Like, I was happy that he reached out to Milos because I'm like, that kind of makes sense because it kind of bridges that gap a little bit. So they took on and they just kind of clicked right away. So I think Samson trusted him right away and they started working together. And
so then that led to the Olympia this past year, right? Yeah. So this right now, currently is the first break you've had in a long ass time.
I mean, we did the Arnold last year. I think that's sort of before the Olympia, we did the Arnold last year, and I think that was the first one where we saw.
Yeah, because Olympia was
winning the show.
Well, I just want to interrupt for 1 second though, because I think the first break he got where people opened her, when he beat Nathan.
Yeah.
And Nathan had already beat Samson a few times. And Nathan was a former Mr. Olympian, has like 7 or 8 pro wins. So when Samson finally leaped over Nathan, people were like, wait a minute, maybe that was a fluke, but holy shit, who is this guy? And then only a few months later, he did the Arnold, and he ended up in 4th. And then people again were like, wait a minute, this guy looks really good. Who's this guy? And so that kind of was the build-up to the past Olympia.
Okay.
Right. So leading up to the 22 Olympia, people actually had him in the conversation in the top 10.
Yeah.
Because they had seen him at the Arnold, and then they had also seen all the progress pictures leading up to the Olympia. Like, he was posting pictures in the off season at like 330
pounds.
Yeah.
When he came to Texas.
Yeah.
But how long was the off season? I guess
6 months.
6 months.
So it was a good off season.
I've never seen anybody put this much size on, like quality size.
Yeah.
In such a short period of time.
Sure.
Him and Milos worked magic. And he's posting his like peak off season, like at the very end, before you start dieting. He's 330 something pounds, but still in shape.
Still in shape, but 330 still sucks. Man. You can't.
Carrying that weight, it feels like that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You came in August, right?
Yeah.
So he turns up first time in Texas, comes to my house. It's like 105 degrees.
No, that's not comfortable, man.
I'm like, the guest room is
You're wearing sandals everywhere you go.
I was just breaking stuff, man. I was breaking chairs, things. Something he cracked. I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
It's crazy though, because so there's always, people that, and even us, we weren't sure. We were looking at this guy who's 330. And we've seen people get to 330 before, 320, 310, and they start dieting and they lose half that shit.
Yeah. Well, what's your stage weight? What was it here at the Arnold?
297.
Okay. But this is where I'm Dave, this is where I'm going with it. Like, so
he gotta let this set in.
That's so do that photo shoot, right?
Yeah.
And he's over 300 pounds right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. So when he was done the off season before the last Olympia, people were like, yeah, he's 330, but he's probably going to lose 50 pounds of it, and he's not going to keep, because it's all this new muscle. You know how you hear new muscle is going to disappear when you start. He starts fucking dieting, none of it's going away. We're like, what the?
You're saying that like it's a problem.
He's fucking 8 weeks out. He's still 310 pounds. We're like, what the fuck is going on? So people are, all the predictions are being made, and now Samson is in the conversation. This guy's going to be in the top 10.
Well, even look at the improvements Samson made from the Olympia in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
He was a lot.
No, but I mean, let's not skip ahead. So the story, so people are like, yeah, this guy could be in the top 10. He shows up. The first call out, I'm sitting like 10 rows up. The first call out, he's standing next to Rami, who's the former Mr. Olympia, and he's making him look bad.
No, I saw the live stream of that one.
Yeah.
That I did see.
And tell him what that was like.
Oh man,
because that was your first breakout.
First breakout.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we knew we were big.
Yeah.
Coming there, and I remember when we started coming down, and we got to a point where we were 10 weeks. And what happens is, because I got just like most bodies, we got bodies dysmorphia, right?
Yeah.
We get a lot of size and we feel big. When it starts to come off, we're like, oh, we lost everything. So I always make sure that when we start prepping, I'm like, look, I stopped checking my weight on the scale. Look, it's all about getting lit.
Tell him that he didn't check his weight once.
I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
I was like, look, if you start honing in that, you start self-sabotaging. You don't want to get smaller now.
Oh my God, I weigh 2.
So I'm like,
I weigh 298.
Yeah. So my wife goes in, she takes
I know it. Like that sucks.
So my wife, she goes around the house, she takes all the batteries out of the scale. That's all. Oh yeah. She's like, no, we don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because she goes, you check it, you get depressed. Don't. So I'm like, yep, I know. So she takes it out, so we don't know. I was like, oh, what are you weighing now? I was like, honestly, we're gonna have to skip that line because it's not happening. I don't want to know. I said, okay, forget it. We just go by look. So we coming down, and by that point I'm wearing 4XL t-shirts. I'm coming down and we getting leaner. I'm still wearing 4XL t-shirts. They're not getting smaller. They're not getting lean. I'm thinking, this is interesting. So we came all the way down, and we're like 2 weeks out from the show. And I'm looking going, and everybody in the gym going, dude, you still look just as big as you were in offices, and you still look huge. And I'm like, yeah, but come on, man. But we can't really be that. And we were sort of, honing in the idea of just getting in shape, and I'm thinking about it. And I'm really curious. I remember kept asking, so what are you weighing? What are you weighing? And I'm like, I don't want to know. I know I'm big, but I don't want to know. So then when we obviously flew out to, because even when we were going, because I always check my weight, the only time we'll check my weight is a week out from the show.
Yeah.
We check it once, and even then I don't want to know. So what happens is I'll close my eyes and I'll stand on scale. My wife will actually take a picture of it. No, we'll take a video of it, or she'll take a picture of it. Even Arnold was the same thing. My wife takes a video of it, and she doesn't tell me until after the show. And I'm like, I don't want to know, I don't care. Just do it and let me know later. So she takes a video of of the whole process. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we went out to Vegas, and she obviously whispers this to Milos, like, you ain't gonna believe this.
He's still 300. He's still 300 pounds.
Because she's like, he's 296. Milos like, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
They're gonna think you're freaking. So don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because as soon as nobody will, they lose it.
Yeah.
So so we kind of made that. And I remember we kind of went for the Ali's check-in, and obviously you go out, you pick out your number to see what number you're going to be on the show. And obviously we've got 30 guys, one of the biggest Olympiads we've had in a long time. So we're picking out numbers, and I'm picking out number 29, and there's 30 guys in the show, and Mr. Olympia always comes out last. So I'm looking going, if I'm 29, it means I'm second to the last guy. The next guy is Mr. Olympia, is Rami. So I'm standing there, I'm going, holy shit, I'm standing next to him the minute we walk out.
Yeah.
So at this point, obviously, at one point I'm like, holy crap. First Olympia, you're doing that. What the hell are you doing about it? At the same time, I'm sort of excited, going, well, they're not going to miss you now, are you?
Yeah.
If next thing, you're not something. So we kind of went back to the hotel room, and we were like, get ready for this. And we kind of get ready for the show and everything else. I remember when we were backstage at Olympia about to go out, I'm looking around, and obviously you got 30 of the most jacked guys in the world all there, and you're looking around going, oh, it's a sight to behold, man. It's something like you just look around and you just think, no matter how big you think you are, you end up feeling that small. You just end up feeling, for some reason, everybody looks way better than you ever think, and you're looking around going, okay, this is not going to end well, So we kind of like obviously come out and do our single walk on each of us one by one. And what happens is obviously you're backstage, you got the screen so you can see everybody go before you do. And I'm watching everybody go one by one, and Ben was backstage with me. And I think he must have saw my face kind of go, was like... And I was, at that point, you could tell I was just pretty much falling apart backstage.
Well, tell him too, like really quickly, the lead up, like when he got to Vegas, Samson was a wreck. He was nervous beyond nervous.
Yeah, it was.
So Ben, it was lucky Ben was with him backstage because he was able to keep him like.
Well, see, that's a problem too, because when they start holding water,
Yeah.
the cortisol starts going too high. Now you got to deal with that shit too.
Yeah.
I just go. Well, Denise, my wife, she tans them backstage. So Denise is tanning them. I'm looking over and she's tanning him, and I see this 300-pound, 6-foot monster with pure terror on his face. So it's like, honestly, I stood there like this, like. So I was over, I was like, hey man, you belong here, like, go and enjoy it. So, because I know how he, like, part of Samson on the stage is his stage presence, the way he poses, it projects confidence, and I'm like, you can't not have that right now. Like, that's one of your aces. So I was like, go and enjoy it and be confident. Like, you have to project your physique. And for me, what I saw the big difference from this weekend to last.
Oh yeah,
What was that?
The confidence level was just, and now it's dangerous. Now he believes.
Yeah.
When I saw you at a meet and greet.
Yeah, I was because it's different. Because so
Different because of what?
Yeah, because basically when we walk out as a group and you're standing next to him, even people that how does I feel like when I stood next to him, we were kind of doing the first shots and going to the first pose, and I didn't have a clue about how I was looking next to him. I just thought, okay, you know what? You probably don't feel great. You don't feel you belong here. You don't feel anything, but just do the job. Pose aggressively. Pose like you want this more than show them that you want this.
Yeah.
So we went through and went to the shots, and I walked back off stage. I went backstage, and I remember one of the cameramen came up to me and he goes, bro, everybody just saw you standing next to Rami, and we all just went, holy crap. And I was like, what? He goes, bro, you need to go see this. You really need to see this. You know,
Dave, sorry. I'm sitting with Jose, right? Jose Raymond, who's a judge also. Down the line is Dennis James, Chris Cormier, and I'm not sure, somebody else was sitting with them. I think it was Chad Nichols, maybe. He walks off after the comparison, and me and Jose are like, holy fuck. He's just like, he looked better than Rami. And I look down the row, and Dennis and Chris and Chad are all over there looking down back at me. They're going, I'm like,
But it's what's in his mind is what matters, though, right?
Because I didn't even know that. You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, so obviously they didn't bring everybody on stage.
So you had to actually see it before you would believe
even
it.
then, I didn't even really see it.
Yeah, you thought they're just boosting your ego.
People just tell me to feel bad. I was like, okay, you know what? Well, you know, if they're saying that you did good, so it probably wasn't that bad. And
Yeah, I know, I get it.
You know, you get just enough to be like, okay, that wasn't so bad. So you walking on, we were the last two guys to walk on. You have all the other athletes already on stage, and we're walking out. And I'm looking at this just walls of muscle, everybody there. And you're walking out, you're looking at all these guys and thinking, holy crap. And I remember at that point thinking, you know, if I'm in the second call out, I'll accept that. It's not so bad, you know? Come on, man. Look at this. You got my best here. So we stood there, and obviously then they start making the first call out. You know, the top guys are going to be top guys in the competition. And they call in one name, second name, third name. And then I hear mine. And automatically at that point was the first time I was like, holy crap, I'm in the first call out in the Olympia. And then I think that was the point where it was like, okay, I can do it.
Yeah, you felt like you belonged.
I can do this.
you could see it. You could see it in his posing. Because Samson he's got a specific flair to his posing and specific movements he does. And he actually has a specific like aggression when he poses.
Yeah.
When he got the first call out, the poses and the first call out were different than everything else. You can see the trajectory of his, and then especially when they started shifting people around.
Oh yeah.
When they left Samson in, like closer to the middle, he got even more aggressive, and it was like you could see the confidence like building.
So for you guys, right? So not so much for him. Had his confidence gone in the show at the level it was when the show ended, does he place higher?
I
And I know how bodybuilding fans are, so fuck all you guys. This is just a conversation we're having.
I'll tell you what I think. I think Rami being a former Mr. Olympia, they pushed him back as far as they were gonna. Like he ended up in what, fourth or fifth? Fifth. Yeah, fifth. So I think they pushed him back as far as they were gonna, because Brandon Curry was fourth, who's also a former Mr. Olympia. So they're like, you know what, this is probably a safe place to put him. And then Samson was right behind there. So I don't think they would have.
All right, so then let me reframe it. How much of an impact do you think it had on his stage presence and his ability to win this?
Oh, man. It's everything.
Oh man, because honestly, that was the time like after the Olympia. That's what I said, after the Olympia, seeing that and going off and looking back at the pictures and videos and everything else, and we kind of looked at the videos of pre-judge even when then, and obviously we are working with my wife and Mel, and we looked at it and going, you look better 2 weeks before even that Olympia appearance.
Yeah.
Because for some reason you weren't even as your best at that. And we were like, what happened? And we sort of had to digest everything. Okay, you weren't as sharp, whatever, you know, you weren't as hard, and everything was kind of going there. And the idea of it was the idea that if I wasn't even at my best, and I could have done that at Olympia and placed that high, what happens when we actually come in at our best?
Yeah.
So the whole prep was literally going through my mind of actually having that thought, you know?
Well, at a certain point with people, not everybody, but with people, it becomes very hard to accept compliments. Like somebody gives you a compliment and you think, you know, they're just doing this to be nice, or they're just doing this.
Yeah.
And it was authentic, but in your own brain.
You don't think.
Yeah, it's like, nah, right? But then at some point that shifts.
Yeah.
Right? And then when that shifts, you know, your own presence, now it can shift too far, right?
Yeah.
You become a cocky, arrogant asshole. But even with that, I would say maybe the confidence isn't really there. Maybe that's